I met Julia at a 4th of July barbecue my older brother, Ryan, hosted. I had just moved back to town after a few years working out of state, and I almost skipped it. Ryan convinced me to come. He said, "There's someone you need to meet. Trust me." I figured he meant a business contact. Instead, it was her. She was standing by the grill, holding a lemonade, barefoot in the grass, laughing with Ryan's wife and one of her friends. I noticed her before I got halfway up the driveway. When she turned to introduce herself, she said my name like it was already familiar to her. Turned out, it was, Ryan had mentioned me. We started talking, and we didn't stop. That night, after everyone left, we sat on the back steps and watched the fireworks from a distance. She leaned her shoulder against mine like we'd known each other for years. I dropped her off at her place around midnight. The next morning, she texted me a photo of the breakfast she made and asked what I would have cooked instead. We got married 2 years later. Not rushed. Not complicated. Just a quiet courthouse ceremony and a dinner with family after. She wore a blue dress. I wore a navy suit that didn't quite fit my shoulders. We bought a small house on the edge of town, quiet street, decent yard, close enough to family but not too close. She planted flowers in the front while I worked on fixing the sagging fence in the back. Our first child, Leah, came a year after that. She was born just after midnight on a stormy Tuesday. Julia barely made a sound through labor, just held my hand, gritted her teeth, and focused. I remember thinking, she's built for this. And she was. She held our daughter like she'd done it before. I just stared at them both. A few years later, our son Jacob arrived. He was loud from day one. Always moving, always reaching for things, always trying to run before he could walk. Julia said he got it from me. I said he got his stubbornness from her. Our house got louder and messier and better with the kids. Mornings were chaos, cereal bowls, missing socks, the dog barking at squirrels. Evenings were quieter. Julia handled bedtime with this softness I couldn't replicate. She'd hum to them while brushing their hair, tell the same stories night after night, never seeming tired of it. I usually handled cleanup, dishes, toys, the leftover bits of the day. I worked in construction, mostly project management at that point, so my hours were early. I left before sunrise and came home around 4 or 5, depending on the site. Julia ran a small online business selling handmade decor. She'd work while the kids were at school and sometimes late into the night. Our setup worked. It wasn't perfect, but it was solid. We spent Sundays at the park, or at Ryan's house if the weather was bad. He and I had always been close. He was older by 3 years, more polished, more charming in social settings. The kids adored him. Julia got along with him well too. We were all comfortable around each other. It was a good life. Simple, full, and ours. Our life ran on routine. Not the dull kind, but the kind that made things feel stable, like we were all moving in the same direction. Every morning followed a rhythm. I got up before everyone, made coffee, packed the kids' lunches, and checked the weather. Julia would usually come into the kitchen around the time I was lacing up my boots. She'd kiss my cheek, steal a sip of my coffee, and ask if I had my keys this time. I lost them more than I care to admit. The kids had their own patterns. Leah, who was 7 now, always dressed herself before breakfast. Jacob, 5, needed at least 3 reminders to put on socks. Julia handled the school drop-off, then came home and dove into her work, packaging orders, managing the website, handling custom requests. She'd found a good rhythm with her shop. It wasn't a fortune, but it brought in enough to give her freedom, and she loved it. When I got home, there was usually some project waiting for me, a leaky faucet, a squeaky hinge, toys to fix, sometimes just yard work. I liked keeping the house running. It gave me a sense of control in a world where so much felt out of reach. Julia always said I couldn't sit still, and she wasn't wrong. Even on weekends, I'd find something to do while she relaxed with a book or FaceTimed her sister. Dinner was the one part of the day we always tried to keep sacred. No phones, no TV, just the four of us at the table. Julia was a great cook, nothing fancy, just real food that reminded me of the kind I grew up on. She taught Leah how to make simple things like scrambled eggs and grilled cheese, and Jacob, in his own way, liked to help by handing her utensils or spilling flour on the floor. We didn't travel much, but we made a point to get out of town once or twice a year. Usually road trips, long drives, quiet cabins, places where the kids could run around and we could just breathe for a few days. We'd come back tired, but lighter. Ryan came around a lot, especially on weekends. He lived on the other side of town in a sleek condo that always smelled like expensive soap. No kids, no partner, just Ryan doing well for himself. He'd show up with gifts for Leah and Jacob, bottles of wine for Julia, and some new gadget he wanted me to try. He had this way of inserting himself into any room without feeling like an intruder. The kids adored him. Leah called him Uncle Ree and drew him pictures all the time. Jacob followed him around like a shadow, always begging him to race or play superheroes. Julia got along with him, too. They joked a lot, always teasing each other. It made sense, we were all family. Sometimes I'd catch myself watching the three of them together, Julia laughing at something Ryan said, the kids piled into his lap, and I'd think, this is what it's supposed to be. Just people you love, in one place, safe. Spring rolled in with its usual mess, wet shoes by the door, grass clippings on the porch, kids bouncing off the walls after school. Julia loved this time of year. She'd open the windows and let the breeze move through the house, like it needed to shake out the stale air of winter. She'd play her favorite old playlists while folding laundry or working at the dining room table, humming while she scribbled on her notepad. She started a new garden out back, herbs, mostly. Mint, basil, rosemary, and something she called lemon thyme. Said it helped her feel rooted, which I thought was a little cheesy, but it made her happy. I helped her clear the soil, built the raised beds, and watched her spend afternoons out there in her sun hat and gloves, completely zoned in like it was the most important thing in the world. Leah had taken an interest in reading. She'd curl up on the couch and speed through chapter books, asking Julia about words she didn't recognize. Jacob was still all motion, climbing, jumping, dragging sticks through the mud. I'd take him outside after dinner and let him race me to the tree at the edge of the yard. Julia would watch from the porch with a cup of tea, smiling as we ran ourselves breathless. Our schedules stayed tight. I still left before the sun came up, and Julia still handled the morning madness. We'd trade stories in the evening, my clients, her customers, funny things the kids said. It was a rhythm I had grown used to and didn't want to mess with. Predictable in the best way. Ryan visited often, maybe more than usual lately. He'd drop by for dinner on Fridays, sometimes with takeout, sometimes just to hang out. Julia always seemed glad to see him. She'd tell him about her latest orders, joke about him being her marketing guy, because he had once shared her shop on his social media and caused a minor flood of new customers. They got along well. Always had. She teased him like a sibling, poked fun at his spotless car or his fancy shoes. He'd fire back with something about her herbal teas or her tendency to hum off-key. It was harmless, light. Sometimes they'd gang up on me, mock the way I couldn't fold fitted sheets or how I always forgot to buy almond milk. I took it in stride. That was how it worked. Comfortable, familiar. When the weather was nice, we'd all sit on the back patio, the kids running circles, Julia with her glass of wine, Ryan talking about some real estate client or vacation he'd just come back from. I liked those nights. The air was warm, the porch light flickered like always, and the conversation felt easy. Julia had been talking about repainting the living room. She asked for my opinion on color swatches, laid them out in rows across the coffee table. I pointed to two I liked. She said they were the two she hated most. We laughed about it and left the decision for another day. That was just how we were, steady, busy, always with something in motion, always with somewhere to be. The days were full, but they never felt overwhelming. That summer was loud in the way only families with young kids understand. School ended and the living room became a battlefield of toys, coloring books, and barefoot sprints across the hardwood floors. Julia took it all in stride. She loved having them home, loved the chaos, the freedom of unstructured mornings. She turned every mundane moment into a little ritual. Making pancakes with Leah on Wednesdays. Sprinkler runs with Jacob in the late afternoon heat. Popsicles before dinner, just because. I still worked regular hours, but I started getting home earlier when I could. The job was steady that summer, nothing too demanding, nothing falling apart. I'd walk in around 5 and see them out back, her in a folding chair with a book in her lap while the kids screamed over who got to spray the hose. She'd wave at me with a grin, her hair pulled into a loose knot, a smear of paint or dirt on her jeans. It looked like the kind of life you picture in your 20s but rarely get. Evenings had their own rhythm. Julia made light dinners during the summer, pasta salads, grilled chicken, whatever didn't heat up the kitchen. We ate with the windows open, fans humming, kids half distracted by the sound of neighborhood dogs and someone mowing 2 houses down. It wasn't peaceful, but it was good. On weekends, we drove out of town, little day trips, local parks, a picnic in a meadow once where the wind knocked over every cup we brought. Julia packed everything down to the last napkin. She always did. She liked being prepared for whatever the day might throw at us. I think it helped her feel like she could breathe. One Sunday, she decided the hallway needed repainting. Not just touched up, completely redone. She laid out swatches across the floor like we were preparing for a wedding. I told her I didn't care about the shade of white she picked, and she rolled her eyes, called me useless, and kissed me anyway. We painted it together, both kids helping with foam rollers, and by the end of the day there were more smudges on us than on the walls. That night, we put the kids to bed and sat outside under the porch light. No music, no phones, just the quiet chirping of summer bugs and the clink of ice in our glasses. She leaned into me and said, "We're lucky, you know that?" I nodded. We were. She started going on longer walks in the evenings after dinner. Just around the block. Said it helped her think, helped her wind down after the noise of the day. Sometimes she'd take Leah if she wasn't too tired. Other times, she went alone, earbuds in, her steps slow and steady as she disappeared down the street. I never thought much of it. She needed space sometimes. We all do. Especially after a day of snacks and crayons and sticky handprints on every surface. I was glad she had something that gave her peace. We were in a good place. Not exciting, maybe, but full. It was the small things that started to feel a little off. Not wrong. Not out of place. Just slightly different, like the radio being tuned a half step off. One morning, Julia left her phone on the counter while she was in the shower. That wasn't unusual. What caught my attention was how quickly she came back for it. I hadn't touched it, hadn't even moved, but the second she stepped out, towel still wrapped around her, she walked straight to the kitchen and grabbed it without a word. Just a quick glance toward me and then back to the screen. I asked if everything was all right. She said, "Yeah. Just a reminder I forgot to turn off." Then she went to the bedroom and closed the door. Later, she joked that she was getting scatterbrained lately. Said she'd started writing everything down in her planner so she wouldn't forget things. I didn't push. She managed our home like clockwork. If anyone deserved a mental lapse now and then, it was her. Another day, she came back from her evening walk and went straight into the bathroom. That wasn't new either, she'd often freshen up or take a long shower after being out. But this time, she stayed in there longer than usual. The water wasn't running the whole time. I didn't think much of it until I realized I hadn't heard the front door open. She must have come in while I was folding laundry in the back room. When I asked how the walk was, she smiled and said, "Quiet. Just what I needed." I believed her. Her cheeks were flushed like they always were after a walk, and she smelled faintly of the peppermint lotion she kept by the sink. The days stayed full. The kids had summer reading lists and weekend playdates. Julia was still running her shop, though she seemed a little less chatty about it. Usually, she'd tell me every strange customer message or funny gift note she had to print. Lately, she just said, "Busy," and moved on. I figured it was the heat. No one's at their best in July. That weekend, she asked if I could take the kids out for a few hours so she could catch up on some custom orders. I said sure. We went to the park, got ice cream, came home sticky and tired. When we walked in, the house was quiet, but the air felt, still, like the windows hadn't been opened all day. Julia was sitting at the table, laptop open, headphones in. She smiled and waved, then closed the lid and stood up to hug the kids. There were no boxes on the floor, no packaging materials, no mess. When I asked how much she got done, she said, "More than I expected," and kissed my cheek before heading into the kitchen to make dinner. There was nothing wrong. Nothing I could name. Nothing that felt like it didn't belong. But something, some tiny piece of the air between us, had changed. The next shift came quietly, almost like it was trying not to be noticed. It was early August, one of those weeks where the heat never really let up, even at night. We'd started sleeping with the fan right up against the bed. Julia said it helped her drift off faster. Most nights, she'd be out before I even turned the light off. But that week, I started waking up alone. Not every night, just once or twice. I'd open my eyes in the dark and reach across the sheets, and her side would be empty, still faintly warm. Once, I got up to check. She was in the living room, curled up on the couch, phone in hand, brightness turned down low. She looked up like she hadn't expected me. "Couldn't sleep," she said. "Didn't want to wake you." She patted the seat beside her, but I just nodded and went back to bed. She stayed out there a while. I heard the creak of the couch when she shifted, the soft buzz of the fridge cycling. Then finally the sound of her footsteps coming back down the hall. Another morning, I passed her phone on the kitchen counter and noticed the lock screen was changed. It used to be a picture of Leah and Jacob at the pumpkin patch, bright orange sweaters, cheeks full of cider donuts. Now it was just a soft gradient, no photo. When I asked about it, she said, "The kids kept messing with my apps. This way, fewer distractions." I said nothing. I didn't want to turn it into something when it probably wasn't. The kids were picking up on the summer restlessness too. Leah started asking more questions, mostly about why Mom wasn't coming on the errands like she used to. Jacob just got clingier, following Julia from room to room like a shadow. She told me she was feeling stretched thin, a little burnt out. "I think I just need a few days to reset," she said one night while folding laundry. "Maybe go visit my aunt, get some quiet." Her aunt lived upstate, a few hours away, in a place surrounded by trees and too many birds. Julia used to go there sometimes before we were married. I told her it sounded like a good idea. She didn't press the plan, didn't set a date. Just mentioned it. Like it was a passing thought. She started using her planner more, not the small notebook she always carried, but a new one, spiral-bound and a little flashier than her usual style. She said she got it on sale. I saw her writing in it late one night, the lamp on low, her pen moving quickly across the page. When I asked what she was working on, she said, "Just organizing the next few weeks." I got behind. One day I came home from work early, and the house was empty. I checked my phone, no message. I called her. She answered on the second ring, sounded calm, said she had just run out for groceries and would be back soon. I opened the fridge. Nothing was missing. I stood there for a while, staring at shelves that looked exactly the same as they had that morning. It wasn't like her to forget small things. But I told myself to stop thinking like that. It was probably nothing. It started getting harder to tell what was normal and what wasn't. Julia had always been good at the little things, remembering appointments, managing the kids' schedules, knowing exactly where every receipt in the house was. That kind of quiet mastery over chaos. But lately, she was slipping. Not in a big, obvious way. Just enough that I noticed. She forgot to send in Leah's field trip form. Left a lunchbox at home. Twice in 1 week, she ran a load of laundry and never moved it to the dryer. The house didn't feel messier, just less cared for. The usual rhythm was off, like the beat was still playing but she wasn't keeping time anymore. I asked if she was overwhelmed. She smiled, said, just distracted. But then didn't offer anything beyond that. The walks continued. Most nights, right after dinner, she'd step out, sometimes for 20 minutes, sometimes nearly an hour. I asked once if she wanted company. She shook her head. "It's my reset button," she said. "You get yours on the drive home. This is mine." That made sense. She'd always been that way, liked to let her mind wander when things got noisy. But even when she returned, she seemed distant. Her eyes would linger on something just past me, like she was still halfway down the sidewalk. That week, she changed the password on her laptop. I found out when I tried to pull up a shared spreadsheet we used for budgeting. It asked for a login. I asked her what it was, and she froze for just a moment, not long, but enough that I caught it. Then she said she'd updated all her passwords for security. "Too many spam emails lately," she said. "You should probably do the same." I nodded. She typed it in herself. Saturday night, I woke up again to find the bed empty. I didn't get up this time. I just laid there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, counting the seconds between the house's small sounds, the creak of wood, the hum of the fan. At some point, I heard the faintest sound of a car pulling away from the curb. I didn't ask her about it the next day. She was tired. Quieter than usual. She made breakfast like normal, but barely touched hers. Said she had a headache. Took 2 Advil and laid down in the bedroom with the curtains drawn. I took the kids to the park, gave her the space she asked for. When we got back, she was folding laundry on the couch like nothing had happened. There wasn't one big sign. No shouting. No sudden accusations. Just this slow, growing sense that I was holding something fragile without knowing where the cracks were. That if I pressed too hard, even by asking a simple question, it might all come apart. And I still didn't know what it even was. By the middle of that week, Julia was distant in a way I couldn't describe. Not cold, she still kissed me goodbye, still folded my work shirts the same way, but something about her presence had thinned out. Like she was here, but already leaning towards somewhere else. That Thursday night, she brought it up. Said she needed a break. Not from us, she clarified, just from everything, the house, the noise, the non-stop days. "I haven't had time to breathe," she said. "I just need a few days to clear my head. My aunt said I could come stay, and I think I should." She looked exhausted, and not just physically. So I nodded. "You'll come back Sunday?" I asked. "Sunday night," she said. 3 days. "I'll sleep, read, not talk to anyone. You can handle the kids." Of course I could. I helped her pack that night. Nothing unusual, a weekend bag, some books, her slippers, that soft hoodie she always traveled with. The only thing that stood out was how quickly she moved, like she'd been ready to leave since before she asked. Friday morning, she left early. I walked her to the curb where her rideshare waited. "Train's at 9, she said, checking her phone. "I'll text when I get there." She hugged me, tight but quick, kissed the top of Jacob's head, squeezed Leah's hand, and waved as the car pulled away. The kids and I stayed busy. We baked cookies on Saturday. Leah drew pictures for her to come home to. Jacob kept asking how many sleeps until Mom got back. I told him 2. It felt good to say something I believed. Sunday came. I told the kids we'd surprise her with a clean house and dinner ready. I picked up groceries, folded laundry, vacuumed the rugs. Around 3:30, I took them out for a short walk to burn off some of the late afternoon energy. On the way back, we passed through the downtown strip, near the square with the coffee shop and bookstore. That's when I saw her. Not at the train station. Not on her way back from anywhere. She was stepping out of a restaurant, one of those quiet, expensive places we only went to for special occasions. Her hair was pulled back. She was smiling. Laughing. Carrying her bag in one hand, walking alongside someone else. Ryan. My brother. He was right there next to her, saying something that made her smile harder. His hand brushed the small of her back. She didn't flinch. She didn't look uncomfortable. She looked like someone who belonged exactly where she was. I didn't move. I stood across the street, one hand on the stroller, watching as they strolled down the sidewalk like nothing in the world was out of place. They didn't see me. And I didn't call her name. I didn't go home right away. I took the kids around the block once more, letting them chase each other along the sidewalk while my mind stayed locked on what I'd just seen. I didn't look at my phone. I didn't answer Julia's next message, still on the train. Might need a ride depending on delays. I'll keep you posted. I read it twice. Then I put the phone in my pocket and drove the kids home in silence. They ran off to the living room. I walked into the bedroom, stood in the middle of the floor, and looked around like I didn't recognize any of it. Her dresser. Her folded laundry. The lotion on the nightstand she always used before bed. I opened every drawer, every closet door. I didn't know what I was looking for. Maybe nothing. Maybe something that would explain the thing I already knew. The anger didn't come all at once. It started low. Tight in the chest. Controlled. Focused. I didn't yell. I didn't call her. I didn't demand answers. I packed her things. Every drawer. Every item. I moved with precision. Shirts folded, shoes paired, toiletries wrapped in a towel. I took her laptop, her planner, her work folders, everything she claimed as hers. I didn't break anything. I didn't leave a note. I drove across town. Ryan lived in a sleek little townhome not far from downtown. He kept his porch spotless, his hedges trimmed, his little black mailbox polished like it mattered. I parked half a block away and carried each box, 5 in total, up to his door. I didn't knock. I didn't ring the bell. I stacked them neatly in front of his door, one by one, then placed her suitcase right on top. The last thing I did was take off my wedding ring and slide it into the front pocket of her bag. Then I drove home and called my lawyer. It was a Sunday evening, but he picked up. I told him I needed to file. I didn't give details, just said, I want this clean. I want it fast. And I want full custody of the kids. He asked if I was sure. I'm sure. Julia came home around 8:45. She walked into the house like nothing was wrong. Said, "Hey babe," and put her purse down on the entry table. I stood by the sink, arms crossed. "Where are the kids?" she asked. "In bed," I said. "Where've you been?" She blinked. "Train was late." I texted. I nodded slowly. "You didn't come from the train." Her eyes froze. Just for a second. Then she tried to recover. "What are you talking about?" "I saw you. With him." Silence. The kind that empties a room faster than shouting ever could. She didn't deny it. Didn't say his name. Just stood there, realizing everything had already happened. Your stuff is at his place, I said. Boxes and all. You can pick it up tomorrow. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Then opened it again. You're making a mistake. No, I said. You did. She didn't cry. Didn't fall apart. She just stood there as I walked past her and locked myself in the bedroom. The next morning, I filed the papers. Julia moved in with her sister for a while. She never asked if she could come back. I think she knew the door was already shut. Ryan tried to call me once. Just once. I let it ring until voicemail picked up. He didn't leave a message. I blocked his number the same night. Whatever he had to say, it didn't matter. There was nothing left to talk about. The kids didn't know anything right away. I kept things simple. Mom's staying at Aunt Claire's for a bit. They accepted it. Kids don't ask many questions when the routine doesn't shift too hard. I got them dressed, fed, out the door. I packed lunches, helped with homework, brushed Jacob's teeth while Leah read aloud on the bathroom floor. I kept everything moving. Julia tried to FaceTime once. I let the phone ring out. Then she texted me. Can I talk to them? I told her she could call once a week. Sunday nights. On speaker. In the living room. That was the deal. She didn't argue. Not openly. The lawyer moved quickly. I gave him everything, the timeline, the photo evidence I'd taken from across the street, the texts that came after. We filed for full custody with supervised visitation. He said the courts tend to side with stability, and in this case, I had the structure. The receipts. She didn't even contest it. Not in any real way. Her parents reached out. Said they were devastated. Said they didn't raise her to make decisions like this. I didn't say much. They asked if they could still see the kids. I told them they could, under my terms. They agreed. The neighborhood buzzed, of course. People always notice when someone disappears from the porch swing or isn't at school pickup. A few friends checked in. I gave them as little as possible. We're working through some things. That was enough. The kids adjusted better than I expected. They asked for her less and less. The silence in the house shifted, not empty, just quiet. Calmer. I started sleeping again. Eating like a human. Washing dishes right after dinner instead of letting them pile up. I painted the hallway Julia always talked about but never got around to. I let the kids help. Jacob put a handprint on the wall and laughed like it was the funniest thing he'd ever done. I left it there. I didn't see Ryan again. His place went dark a few weeks later, blinds drawn, car gone, mailbox full. Someone said he moved. No forwarding address. No goodbye. Just vanished like the last page of a book you didn't want to finish. Julia still calls. Once a week. The kids speak to her. I listen from the other room, not to spy, just to make sure. She keeps her voice light for them, says she misses them, tells them she loves them. They say it back. Then they hang up and go back to whatever they were doing. That's all there is now. Calls and distance. And peace. Fall came fast, like the year was in a hurry to end. The mornings turned crisp. I started packing jackets in the kids' backpacks, laying out warmer clothes the night before. They got used to the new rhythm, just me waking them up, just me brushing peanut butter onto their toast, just me tying Jacob's shoelaces while Leah practiced reading to the dog. I adjusted. That's what you do. You don't get a choice, really. Some parts came easy. The quiet at night. The open space in the bedroom. The absence of tension in conversations. Other parts weren't as simple, remembering the little details Julia used to carry for both of us. Which teacher preferred handwritten notes, what time library books were due, which socks Leah liked and which ones felt weird. But I learned. Not all at once, but enough. The house felt different now. Not haunted. Not heavy. Just cleared out. I donated things I didn't need, boxed up items I wasn't ready to deal with yet. Her scent faded from the pillows. Her handwriting disappeared from the calendar. I painted over the chalk wall in the hallway where she used to write reminders. Leah didn't mind. She said we could paint stars there instead. We did, one Saturday afternoon. White stars on a pale blue wall. Not perfect. But ours. The divorce was finalized in early November. No courtroom, no last words. Just a digital signature and a final email. My lawyer texted me later that day. It's done. Take care. I replied with 2 words, thank you. I didn't celebrate. I didn't mourn. I just stood at the kitchen counter for a while, watching the kids play in the living room, and felt something settle in my chest. Not relief. Not pride. Just clarity. The kind that doesn't need to be loud. Ryan didn't reappear. I never heard from him again. Last I heard, he'd left town. Someone mentioned he was trying to start over out west. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. I didn't follow up. I didn't care. Julia still calls once a week. She's polite. Careful. The calls are for the kids, not for me. She keeps it light, school, bedtime routines, what did you learn this week? Sometimes Jacob talks for 10 minutes straight. Sometimes Leah just holds the phone and shrugs. When the call ends, I say goodnight and plug the phone back into the wall. I don't say anything more. Some nights the kids ask if she's coming back. I tell them the truth, no. But she still loves you. They nod. Sometimes that's all they need. Other times, they crawl into my bed, and we fall asleep in a tangle of limbs and blankets, the 3 of us in a pile that somehow feels more whole than anything we had before. Holidays came and went. I hung the lights myself. Leah helped with the tree. Jacob tried to put the star on top, even though he couldn't reach. We made new traditions without planning to. I didn't force it. It just happened that way. One night, after the kids were asleep, I sat outside with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders, a warm drink in my hands, and the snow falling quiet as breath. I thought about everything, not as a wound, not as a story to retell, just as a series of moments that brought me here. She left the marriage long before she walked out the door. But I stayed. I stood still while the storm passed. And when it was over, I was still holding on to what mattered. My kids. My peace. My name. I didn't lose anything I couldn't live without.